Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Peanut City Police Podcast. This week I am joined from some of our members in CSI. So ladies, can you go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Go ahead, Sham, you first.
I am CSI Medlin.
And I'm CSI Vevers. And I've been with the Suffolk Police Department since December of 2020.
And I will be with Suffolk PD for about 3 years in April.
Great. Well, thank you guys both for joining us
Of course.
today. We're really excited to kind of dive into a little bit more about what you guys do. But let's just start off by learning a little bit more about each of you. So what made you want to become a forensic scientist in the first place?
That is a really great question. So for me, I know it started out with, I loved ancient Egypt growing up. And so, the mummification process of all of that, and which I really should have known right then and there that I liked this, but I didn't actually start pursuing forensics until I took a class in community college. And then once I took that one class, I kind of knew right then and there. I was like, oh, I'm not bored. I want to do the homework. I want to do this and that and whatever. So that was for me at least.
Mine was actually my biology class in high school. Shout out to Mr. Graham at Kellum High School. He gave us a whole week's worth of just diving into the forensics world, and I really enjoyed it. And from there on, I kind of just dived into it.
Awesome. So can you take me through, if somebody's watching this and maybe they want to become a forensic scientist or do something in CSI, what does that process look like, education-wise and up?
That's a really great question. A lot of people don't realize how much schooling goes into this. So at least for Suffolk, we have to have a bachelor's of science. So not a bachelor's of arts, it has to be a bachelor's of science because we do a lot of in-house chemical processing and chemical creating. And so you have to have that chemistry background. But if you can stick it out through those calculus classes and those physics and those sciences, it makes it well worth it. So I went to school, West Virginia University, and I have a bachelor's of science in forensic and investigative science. So mine's specifically for that.
So mine's a little different. I went to the Virginia Wesleyan University, and I have a bachelor's in criminal justice and biology. But I'm also currently working on my master's degree in forensics investigations. So it's you can go as far as a doctorate if you really want to, but you don't really need that far into it.
The type of school that you go to also is very important, especially if you want to kind of keep with the standards. So there are accredited schools that are better than some others, but that's not to say you can't go to a not accredited school. Just be wary of what school you're going to. Make sure you do your research.
I also think if you're not super picky with your school, getting a great internship in this field is a huge step in getting a job. So if you can find an internship and you can do great in that internship, you're already ahead of a lot of people.
And that's exactly what you did. You were intern, I think, twice, and then you were a volunteer.
Yes. So I've technically been here since 2020, being an intern and then finally getting the job.
But I think that's important too in a career like this. Like, you need to have the knowledge, obviously, but the experience also is probably just as important in the sense.
Oh, absolutely, because school is nothing like real life at all. That was the hardest thing coming into this job when I first started. Was in school, you're always taught at this up here, this really high level, but then when you come in, you're just like, it's not as complicated as that, and it takes a really long time to rewire your brain. But once you're able to do that, it just becomes muscle memory at that point. So
Yeah, it's a job where you really have to pivot on scene because you're thrown different things all the time. You just have to be able to maneuver with everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, kind of hitting on that, can you explain what, I want to say typical, but I'm sure no day is the same for you guys, but what a day in the life kind of looks like for you guys?
So every scene is different, and we have to work every scene as to what we're provided with at that time. So a lot of it is working scenes that you may not have worked that specific day. So trying to go back and check on what developments have happened throughout the investigative process. We work very closely with the detectives. So if the detectives bring us new information, we kind of have to figure out, okay, what evidence do we have? What kind of digital information do we have that can apply to this new information that we've been given? And so that really brings in all different types of scenes. So any kind of scene that we go to, we're constantly trying to figure out, okay, what do I have now that can help me solve what happened? So I'm not sure if that's...
No, that sounds really good. On top of all of that, we absolutely we do a number of things in the lab as well as on scene too.
Yes.
So it really all depends on the type of scene that the Bureau or even the street brings us. We don't work just with the Bureau. We're able to work with all officers, you
Yes.
know, and we're willing to work with other jurisdictions as well because we all
Yeah.
want the same thing. We all want to get justice for the victims. So a typical day normally is you kind of just roll with it.
Yeah, if you're not on a scene, you're back at headquarters, writing your reports, trying to figure out what can I send off to the lab, what will bring the most, what will bring the most information to my case that will help us get to the end result, which is getting justice for the victims. So.
Right, absolutely. And you guys aren't just called out to homicides. Like, there's
No.
a bunch of different scenes that you guys can be called out to. So can you talk a little bit about that and maybe the variety of things that you do at a scene?
Oh yeah. We work.
Oh gosh.
We work everything. We will work recovered stolen vehicles. We will work, the traditional cases that, you see all the time in forensics, which is the homicides, the suicides, robberies, and all those things. But you will see us out and about getting video for every type of scene that you could possibly get. If there's like a robbery that happens at a store, you will probably see us there collecting video and making sure that we can trace back where this person came from and where they went. So.
Yeah. So recovered stolens, we do unfortunately a lot. We have
Breaking and
breaking and enterings. We've had a lot of breaking and enterings.
Yeah. Fatal car accidents, we do those
Yeah.
as well. So there is a fatal car accident team, the fatal team that we work with. They take over the investigative part, and we just focus more on the documenting what happened.
Gotcha, yeah, and I feel like, you guys, not only are you collecting evidence, but maybe some people don't know that you also have to go to court and back that up, correct?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
So, like, how serious and important your job is in the department, and it might be overlooked sometimes.
Stop, I'll cry.
Well, yeah, court I think is all of our biggest fear, just because it seems like that final test that you have to pass to make sure that you can make sure everything is correct. But if we don't do our best in court, we could lose a case completely. So no matter how much work, how many years we go into investigating a certain scene, if we mess up in court, it's done. So a lot of pressure is on what we do. On the day of the actual scene, the whole process of investigating it, and then finally testifying to what we did. It's a big deal.
It is a very big deal because our job could be the difference between a bad guy going free or a good person going to jail. So you have to have that mentality of every scene needs to be important, finish, start to end. You have to, and usually ends up being with court. Now, court, it is a fairly big court.
So scary.
No matter what, and no matter how many times you've testified, you always be nervous for court because you don't know what they're going to throw at you. But as long as you're sure in your processes and sure what you did, you'll be fine. And just tell the truth. That's all you have to do is tell the truth.
And kind of on that, with the pressure of all of that, and then also just the different things that you have to see, because you have to be up there close, taking all the pictures and stuff. How do you guys kind of stay positive or cope when things are just like too much? I know I want to touch on how you guys just have like a really core team back there.
Yeah.
We talked about it a little bit before this, just how you all seem like such a close-knit group. But what are some of the things you do to kind of like, after a hard scene or whatever it may be, just like take it all off?
That's a hard question.
That is a really hard question.
A lot of forensics, it depends. It depends on the scene.
Yeah.
It depends on what I had to do at that scene. And then it also depends on who can I talk to that will understand where I'm coming from.
Yes, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out who will understand. But luckily, we do have this really big, close-knit group where I could go up to someone and be like, I just had this scene and I just need to talk about it. And it's not like, I don't know how you do this. We get that a lot. And you're right, we have to stay positive. And that having a great group of people makes it so much easier, and I know for me at the end of a hard scene, I will go home, I'll sit, hang out with my cats, and I'll try to like read a book, a book that I'm really into to kind of help wind down a little bit. At least that's what I do.
Yeah. I think for me, the hardest scenes are the ones involving kids. So like if a child passes away or anything, those are the hardest ones for me, but I know everyone back there has seen it and dealt with it and has their own way of coping with it. So if I go back and just like talk to my coworkers, they always have good advice. So just like keep moving, like find justice for that kid or whoever it is. So
A lot of that is, you have to think like, I want justice for this family, I want justice for this wife, this kid, all that stuff. So you can kind of compartmentalize at that point and really make sure you're doing your best job.
yeah, it gives you a mission. And
Yes.
so instead of focusing on the tragedy, you focus on how can I help them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to do a complete 180 from that, though, you guys also do a lot with kids in our community. You do a lot of community outreach and just different, events and stuff that you guys go to and show them a little bit about. I think you guys do like a little bit like a fingerprint presentation.
Yeah.
Stuff like that for the kids. So talk to me a little bit about that and kind of those interactions.
Oh gosh. So
We do a lot.
we do a lot. It's really, ever since like COVID, it kind of ramped down a little bit, but we're seeing a more uptick. I love going to schools. Me and Sham, for the last 2 years, we went to, I think, MacBen.
Yes.
I believe it was MacBen, and we got to talk to the kids about like what we do. And normally, when they're younger, we focus on the fingerprints. So we always do like little demos with them.
Yeah.
This year, however, we're starting the youth CSI camp, which 25 kids from 11 to 17 can come for a week, and we teach them, not in depth, but we teach them enough about how cool our job is. And it's awesome. It's so much fun. I did it with the Commonwealth Attorney for the last 2 years. And seeing those kids there, you have kids that are just so into it. It makes me so happy because a lot of people, you don't realize, like, a lot of people do this job, but a lot of people don't want to do this job at the same time. So it's really nice to see those kids like, I think I want to do this, and to inspire those kids.
The future CSIs of the world. Yeah.
I love inspiring the kids to be like, I didn't know that's what this was called. I really want to do this. And I'm like, join us. Yes.
Yeah, it's always good to have those interactions. And like you said, you never know if it's, going to be that one that, pursues somebody to, take it all the way.
I'll be at like a store or something, and one of the kids will come up to me and be like, hello, and I'll be like, oh my gosh, you were at the CSI camp, and that just makes me so like happy that I like left that impression on them.
Yeah, National Night Out is also fun because
yeah.
you get to see a lot more of the community and kids from all over the city, and that's my favorite part because it's not as stressful. It's not like intense. Like you can just have fun, play around. I love playing soccer with the kids, and yeah, it's fun.
We are often called last responders, so we get there after everything is kind of calmed down, and we don't really talk with the public too much when we're in crime scene mode. So it's really nice to have that opposite side, to see these excited kids. And I'll have adults come up to me too and ask me all these questions, and I'm like, come on. They're like, I'm sorry to bother you, and I'm like, please bother me. I love my job. I love talking about my job. So ask all your questions that you want.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really great to hear. So that is all the questions I have for you guys. I think you've provided some really great insight here today to kind of what you guys do. But I'm going to open up now. Is there anything else that you guys want to add or talk about that maybe I didn't ask?
We do a lot that other departments don't have. And I think that's what makes us so special to the community, because we have so much we can provide to them. I'm working on my video training, so video forensics, and I'm also working on entomology. So we are really kind of just covering all of the forensic bases as much as we possibly can.
To people who want to do this, especially because a lot of people, it's talked about a lot like within us, like our police community, but it's not really talked about outside of kind of this niche little group, So if you want to get into this, just as like a recap, internships are super important. Education's super important. Honestly, those are the two biggest things, and you have to have the drive to do it.
Yes.
You have to want to learn. You have to want to be able to help someone, and you have to be able to adapt. That's, I think, the biggest thing about forensics is every day is not the same. And that's why I love it, because you have to think like, oh, okay, yes, we might have like another shooting, we might have something else, but every shooting's different, every suicide's different, it doesn't matter. So you have to be able to kind of use your knowledge and think on the fly. So if that's something that interests you, this field is great for that. If you love forensics and you want something that's not as intense, there's always lab work as well, where you can go and, get DNA or test for drugs and stuff like that. So there are plenty of different things in the forensic field that can encompass something for everyone.
Right, and don't fall victim to the CSI effect.
Yes.
What we
yes.
do is not like the TV shows. It's completely different. It still has the main core of like we investigate the crime scenes and we're there and we're dealing with all of it, but the quick answers and the throwing it into the system and boom, we have our suspect. No, that takes weeks, months, sometimes years for us to get to those results. It's not as quick as they show on TV.
Yeah, and I think that's a really great point, is that a lot of people will come up to me and be like, is it just like the shows? And I hate to say, no, it's not, but I think it's better because it's more real, you know?
Yeah.
We don't got the crazy, holographic things like you see on NCIS and stuff like that.
Right. And the problem that we're facing now is a lot of court, especially if we're doing a jury trial.
Yeah.
The jury assumes that what we do is a lot like what the TV shows are presenting, and it's not. So it's almost like they get disappointed when we're not pulling up all these cool things, but it's like it takes up so much time and effort, and it kind of is unfortunate that the TV shows make it look like it's like this when we're working long time to get to that result.
Days.
Yeah.
It could be long days.
Yeah,
That's another thing. If you don't like to be woken up in the middle of the night, this job might not be for you, unfortunately.
Right. Yeah. You could be woken up at 2 and still be there the next day working the same scene. It depends on what you got.
That should be the CSI motto. It depends.
It depends. Every day is different, and it depends on what you get. So.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys again for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I feel like we're going to have you guys back up here because this
We would
was
love
just too much fun.
Anytime.
Yeah.
And thank you everyone for watching, and we will be back next week with another episode.